You are watching NovaNow.tv, independent community media for Northern Virginia.
Hello, Northern Virginia. Welcome to another episode of NovaNow.tv. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what happened at the LCPS, Loudoun County Public Schools Administrative Building on Tuesday, where a large crowd, estimated conservatively at well over 500, met at the administrative building in Ashburn, Virginia, to protest LCPS on a wide range of issues, ranging from a lack of transparency, perceptions of abuse of power, critical race theory, policy 80/40 and transgender issues, vaccines and mask mandates, and more. But strangely, shocking, not according to the authorized press and the follow-up media reports. Do a simple Google search yourself, looking up the meeting, and just skim the headlines. And what you're going to find is a rather consistent picture, a singular narrative that follows something along these lines. Radical, hate-filled, horrible, dangerous, and far right-wing podcaster protests transgender policies at LCPS. Or something like that. Yes, of course, we're talking about the now infamous Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire in his appearance here in Nova to protest the issue that he brought to the table. Now and then, of course, the articles and the news reports will touch lightly on some of the other issues and concerns that were brought to light at the rally and by those in the large crowd. But for the most part, as per usual, the press does what it does. They do what they do, and the powers that be seem to benefit from the public spin machine, obfuscating and hiding the truth about what is really happening.
He's got a press pass.
No, I do not.
Oh, hi. I'm just wondering, curious about the policy on press in the public meeting.
What media are you representing?
Nova Now TV.
Well, can I see your press pass?
I've got a business card.
It's a press pass.
Where do I acquire a press pass? How do we go about acquiring a press pass?
State police usually give you a press pass. So are you a network?
No, we're independent.
Okay, well, no, then we're not letting independent media tonight. We're full up. Media only from media outlets in D.C. area.
Oh,
national.
So only national press is permitted
National
in here.
and D.C. who are recognized broadcast print.
Oh, interesting.
Folks, if you can't see it by now, well, there it is. That's how it works. And it really could not have been more apparent this past Tuesday.
How you doing back there? Good to see you.
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
So you got your fake news reporter with you?
You're quite
good to see you.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you do. Come on, you guys. Real outlet.
You? Are you serious? I'm opening up a live, raw, unedited stream, sir, and you're calling me fake news.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Seriously. Oh, hide your face? Are you not a public official? He looked me right in the eye and right in the camera and called me fake news. Wow.
Now, for my part in all of this, I showed up to film, as many others did. There were a lot of people there with good quality cameras. I conducted also a very basic live cell phone feed, open for hours, unedited and live, uninterrupted, casting the rally and then interviews with many of the crowd and capturing the registered speakers as they were corralled through the security gauntlet, forced to show their IDs, patted down, subject to scanning in metal detectors, and then ushered into the building 10 at a time, appearing to be inmates in the chow line.
Scanned, apparently.
I moved here. Yeah, I mean, I moved here. I've always wanted to live in Loudoun County. It just kind of it worked out this way. I feel like 37.
42?
Ma'am, no? Are you?
No, he just needs some space.
Which is fine. I guess I'm confused, and we're getting conflicting information as to the press being able to go into a public meeting. Is that not the case?
It's up to them, sir.
Well, who's them? She just refused to talk to me, so can I go in as press?
Unfortunately not, sir.
I can't.
We are so official. I know you're just a regular person. Wow.
69, 64. What are you?
I'm 71. All right. 51 to 61. It's been fun. They did something else.
Is that again? Can I just see your belt buckle? Gun belt? No gun.
All right, Joe. Good luck.
Do black people need to show ID?
That is the most racist thing I've ever seen in my life, man.
I mean, I was being funny, but that is a legitimate question, right?
That's a racist thing I've ever seen.
What
I thought it was racist for them to make us show ID.
Exactly. And now you have to show ID
This is the crazy
It's crazy. It's advertised safe.
Yeah. Such a...
58, Weisskopf.
That's the doctrine again.
And I'm number 58.
Well,
No, I'm
she's
before.
wearing, that's a BLM shirt?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Are we good?
I'm curious, everybody has to show ID to get in here. What are your thoughts on voter ID laws?
Are we good? Okay, sorry.
David, face here.
Okay.
I'm always that person that
No comment from you, ma'am?
so many
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Gotcha.
Stay safe.
Matt, you said they
Thank
gave
you.
60 seconds?
60 seconds, yeah, that's all I gave. And then they cut the mic, so 60 seconds, mic is off.
Did you notice any press in there?
There was some, but there's plenty of room for more press. I don't know why they're keeping you guys out here.
Gotcha. We were called fake news.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, well, that's all real news in there. Sure.
Yeah.
It was really a horrific sight. Then they were released one at a time to stand before the illustrious LCPS board, where they got to claim whatever was left of their 60 seconds to comment. Then they were immediately directed to leave the chamber hall.
Because the media is showing the faces of the individuals. And they probably don't want the media showing the faces of those speakers. Maybe 3 or 4 months ago, they had the speakers' faces on video for all the meetings. And then you saw that they actually pulled the video back off the faces of the people and just showed the room. After that, they had the media showing up. And since the media was showing up, and showing the faces, you don't want the media in there anymore. And so that's kind of what you're experiencing. They simply don't want public comment to make a publicity stunt out of it, probably.
I'm curious your thoughts. One of the big things that I'm hanging up on is why can't I get in there with my camera?
Because those in the majority have set the rules, and they've gave the rules that you can't get in there, and we get to go in one at a time, and we get to stand in the center of the room alone and face the whole Bureau of School Board.
Is that, to your knowledge, do you know the legalities of keeping the press out of a public meeting?
That's a good question. I don't know the legalities. I don't think it's right, that's for sure.
Yes. Are you representing the school board here? Are you with the board?
I am an employee of Loudoun County Public School.
Oh, okay. I'm wondering about what policy was set to keep the press out of a public meeting, and what authority that it's being implemented.
Good question to ask Mr. Byer in our Public Information Office. They do have some press in there that did sign up and register at some of the meetings.
Oh, there is some press in. You're not certain how that was determined? Who got in and who didn't?
They communicated with our Public Information Office.
Oh, so it was a selective process in terms of letting the press in.
Yeah, I saw you. I thought you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. I know you're probably limited on what you can say. I would love to do an interview with your public information officer or somebody that would like to clarify why the press is being kept out of a public meeting. Very interesting topic.
I'm sure if you communicate with the Public Information Office, I'll be happy to help you.
There was no public viewing permitted. This was posted as such. And as I found out, quote, no independent press permitted at all. I was told, flat out, there were too many people who were claiming to be independent press in the meeting last time, and they just decided to stop that.
Interesting. What about recording in terms of the public?
Now, right?
Yeah, and we're actually live right now.
Okay.
So I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering about that policy. Is that a policy? Was that
It's
voted
not
on?
a policy. We put that out to all the media who wanted to come to our meeting. We put it out to 46 people who covered before. We're always open to public information.
I mean, I'm not sure if about here in
Is there a
Virginia,
question here?
but yeah, open records, or not open records, but open meetings. How can you limit the number and or the press that comes in if you're opening it?
Because of COVID restrictions or because of we have too many freelancers in. So we do media outlets.
Interesting. Okay, you're not aware of the policy specifically though?
There's not a policy, there's a practice.
Oh, it's not a policy, it's just a practice.
School board makes policy, there are practices.
Ah, gotcha. That's you answered my question perfectly, and that's why a lot of these people are here tonight.
So they invited certain press in, what they deemed legitimate real press. I was confounded and really rather befuddled. I've spent years as an educator. I spent 13 years teaching digital media, part of which the curriculum was my law, or my experience with law and digital media law and filming in public and in government. I've served as an elected official, and all of this, albeit in another state, but I was pretty sure, I'm new to Nova, just kind of getting my feet wet here on the ground, and Virginia, getting to know the state. And I'm pretty sure that open public meetings, I thought anyway, were state statute. Of course, they would be, there would be particulars from state to state, but open public meetings are supposed to be open public meetings. But I guess that law doesn't apply here to the folks at the LCPS. I was turned away. I was mocked, treated by the public information officer of a school board, acting like one of the mean girls at the mean girl table at the cafeteria, mocking me, calling me names, turned away, called fake news, not permitted in as the big corporate media was ushered in to get their authorized sound bites, a few at a time. That's what you, the public, got to see. Yeah, you get the picture, folks. Wash, rinse, repeat. The spin cycle continues. But I need to make clear, this is not about Sam Ettaro. This is not about Nova Now. I'm not being paid to do this. I think I've got 7 subscribers on our site. Ooh. So far, I think I've made $40 at this and spent thousands of dollars and quit my full-time job to dedicate to do this. I'm not saying poor me, but the fact of the matter is, me and other people like me that are independent media with quality gear and thousands of dollars invested and their lives invested in doing this, it wasn't just us that were kept out. It was you that was kept out. Get that. Get that. It wasn't just my rights as an independent citizen journalist that were stomped on. It was yours. Virginia code is explicit, clear, and unambiguous. Let's read it. Virginia Open Meetings Law provides that any person may, quote, photograph, film, record, or otherwise reproduce any portion of a meeting required to be open. However, the public body that is conducting the meeting, quote, may adopt rules governing the placement and use of equipment necessary for broadcasting, photographing, filming, or recording a meeting to prevent interference with the proceedings. Virginia Code 22-3707. But these adopted rules, any adopted rules, may not, quote, prohibit or otherwise prevent any person from photographing, filming, recording, or otherwise reproducing any portion of the meeting required to be open. And no, furthermore, no public body can conduct a meeting required to be open in a building or facility where such recording devices are prohibited. No public body may prohibit or prevent any person from photographing, filming, recording. Let me read that again. Any person means any person, not just your arbitrary and snarky decision as to who is legitimate real press and who isn't. It states you may not prohibit or otherwise prevent any person from filming, let alone prevent the public from coming into a public meeting. What we saw up there was disgusting, it was egregious, and it needs to stop. Tonight, we're going to talk about that with our special guests and the topics that brought them to the meeting. Thanks so much for tuning in to novanow.tv. I'm Sam Ettaro. Let's get this going.
I think we're just citizens. We are parents who care about our children, most of all. And not just our own children, but all children. And we're not going to abandon them to be brainwashed and abused by a morally and intellectually corrupted education system.
On this episode of novanow.tv, we are going to begin the process of exposing the apparently out of control, and I'll use the word, tyrannical antics of a local school board in Loudoun County, Virginia. The lies, the propaganda machine that protects them, and we're going to start giving the people who are showing up at these meetings to protest their due time at length to let them speak their truth. So there's a series coming here, and I want you to get involved. I want to get to know you, and I want you to get to know these people, to hear their voice and their concerns, not just in sound bites, but in detail. So tonight, our first guest is Patty Hidalgo. Patty Hidalgo Menders, I should say, president of the largest Republican women's club in Virginia, Loudoun County Republican Women's Club, director of the Loudoun Conservatives Care State PAC, former Virginia state strategist for Majority Strategies, and most importantly, a Loudoun mom of 6 sons, daughter to parents who escaped communist Cuba, and Loudoun activist to protect children from CRT. And I should say as well that Patty was the organizer of the event. So Patty, thank you so much for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate it and what you did for Loudoun County and for all of America this past Tuesday.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Absolutely. And of course, our next guest, Dr. Daniel Brubaker. He has a BS in cell and molecular biology from the University of Washington. His first job after college was working in the microbiology lab at Evergreen Hospital in Kirkland, Washington. Most recently, he shifted his focus and achieved a PhD from Rice University for his work with contextual criticism of the earliest Quran manuscripts. He's traveled the world photographing and studying these manuscripts on location, and you can find him on YouTube at Variant Quran. We'll put the link in the description to this video. And his book, Corrections on Early Quran Manuscripts, 20 Examples, is available in bookstores and on Amazon. Dr. Brubaker has 3 LCPS daughters, 2 of whom recently graduated and are now in college. And he has written some rather pointed and eloquent editorials on social media on concerns that he has about what is happening at LCPS. We'll let him talk about that. Dr. Brubaker, thank you so much for joining us on novanow.tv.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, not well, we got last on our list, but certainly not least, a very fiery speaker. She presented at the event on Tuesday on the topic of vaccines. We're going to let her talk a little bit about her work. Marcia Lessard, she's a graduate of Johns Hopkins University, a former police officer, and a mom of 4. And her husband recently retired from the Army. They settled down in Loudoun and have some big dreams and goals on how they plan on helping veterans in the future. And currently, she's working on her 2nd master's degree, and she founded Virginia Freedom's, Virginia Freedom Keepers. And again, great speaker, and I'm looking forward actually to following up with you, Marcia, and doing a more in-depth show on the topic of forced vaccinations. Thank you so much for joining us on novanow.tv. So everybody, let's go ahead and kick this off talking about I really, as I said, we're going to be able to delve into all these topics in much more detail down the road. I really want you guys to give me your feedback on, okay, let's just get to the point. Something that really stuck in my craw. All you got to do, as I said in my monologue, is look at the resulting news coverage and the way that the folks, including us 4 here on screen, are painted to the world as maniacal, hate-filled, right-wing, zealot crazies. And, you know, all you got to do is look at it and then look at the actual facts. And this illustrates the importance of the issue that I brought up, because we all got our own pet issues. But the lack of transparency, the overt, complete just stomping on official Virginia code and the rights of anybody to enter a public meeting and film a public meeting. I was flabbergasted at what I saw, and frankly taken a little off guard. I wish I would have had the code and could have challenged those there a little bit deeper, but next time I'm definitely going to be much more prepared. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Your take on this, Daniel Brubaker?
Yeah, well, I was a little bit like you, Sam, a little bit taken aback and unprepared for that aspect of things. Of course, as we've seen over the past several months, the school board seems to have really tightened up the policies concerning the conduct of these public meetings. First, eliminating the public from shutting down public comment during that one meeting earlier in the summer, and then limiting the speakers who were able to come in to 10 at a time and only 1 at a time into the room. But even at the start, they had a whole raft of media over off on the side of the room being able to cover it. To this last meeting, when I was in there toward the end, there was only 1 camera of the media set up that I could see. And to my understanding, actually, from having spoken with you after the fact, some of the media who wanted to be in there were excluded from the room. Now, when I came in to be in line for my turn to speak, I asked the LCPS employee who was admitting the speakers whether media was in the room. You can't necessarily see over to the side of the room when you go in so clearly, and she said yes, media is in there. And but then she called me back over and explained to me in what seemed somewhat, again, I'm unaware, but what seemed somewhat apologetic, that media had been there was a process. I'm paraphrasing based on my memory, but that there was a process for application, and everybody had the opportunity and so forth. So I kind of had a clue at that time that there was some limitation, or something was not quite right on it. And then on reflecting after the fact, I realized more what I think has been going on, which is a attempt to, in my opinion, to cover over an embarrassing reality, which is that this board is being called out by the citizenry on bad decisions that they're making, and it's quite uncomfortable for them. So even the official video feed did not show the speakers this time.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because in past, obviously, as we've seen in national media, the sound bites or the not sound and visual bites of speakers saying things has been going across on national media. And I think that's what they were trying to avoid, in my estimation.
Patty, as the organizer of the event, Virginia Code 2.2-3707 specifically states any adopted rules may not, quote, prohibit or otherwise prevent any person from photographing, filming, recording, or otherwise reproducing any portion of a meeting that was required to be public. Now, I mean, I've been teaching for, I taught media for 14 years. I've been a digital activist. I served in government. I've got some experience with this. What do you think's going on here?
So I've been involved in public comments, parents just like me coming to the school board for almost a year now. Ever since they shut down our schools during COVID lockdown, we've been asking the school board for some type of transparency, some type of plan, help parents understand what you're teaching our children. Well, this school board is all about control. All they want is to control the narrative. They want to push their political ideologies, their different issues, listen to their certain consultants, and parents are taken out of this. Like I said, I've been doing this for over a year. My school board speech was to show the public and to hear it, because you couldn't see my face, that all the changes that they've done, masks, no masks, sit in the room, no one can sit in the room, get in line, stand on your number, come forward when your name is called, go through security, no purses and bags. It starts at 4. No, it starts at 5. Well, it actually starts at 6:30. Virtual speakers get to go first. No, in-person speakers have to wait outside in the rain and in the thunderstorm. Any voter can speak. Now only Loudoun County residents. So every time a parent like me wants to attend a school board meeting to express our constitutional right to say what you're doing, elected official, is wrong, they change every time rule regulation. And the fact that they change the regulations on the press does not surprise me.
I've never, in my years of public service, I've never seen anything so over the top, egregious, and obvious. And I'm planning on utilizing every resource that I have at my disposal, meager as they may be, to pursue this, including legal, if it's possible and financially feasible. These folks need to be held to account. And I think, again, not to hound on this topic of the freedom of the press and the importance and the reason why these statutes are put into place are there for reasons exactly like this. This is why they're there. So, Marcia, we'll go to you. You're very passionate, and you've dedicated a lot of time and energy to the vaccine mandate issues. But yet, when you look at the news coverage, how did it make you feel the next day looking at the news coverage and seeing 85% of the coverage doing nothing but making it all about Mr. Walsh and what a dangerous right-wing, hate-filled podcaster he is that skirted the system to come in here and have his voice heard? That was the vast majority of the coverage. And the rest of the coverage was very, 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 if it touched on it at all, the other topics. They really focused on and made it look like everybody that was there was maybe, all about the Policy 8040 and transgender issues. And then not the least of which, one of the Fox outlets in D.C. said dozens of people there were easily 500 people there. What we're seeing, the result of these clampdowns, and as you put, Patty, an out-of-control board just doing what they want, when they want, flouting the law, this illustrates the need for them to get in line and to honor their oath of office and to act ethically and hold public meetings that are actually public. What were your thoughts on the news coverage that you saw after the fact, Marcia?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is it's the same on the micro, the macro, and the meso, right? So we fought a lot of bills in Richmond a few years ago, and we realized in that we lined the halls. So many moms went down from Nova, hundreds would line the halls day after day after day throughout an entire session, and they completely shut us out. They did the same thing. At first you could talk, then you couldn't talk, then it was public comment, then it was, and there wasn't even a pandemic going on. And then it was, you can come up and the only thing you can say at the mic is, I disagree. And that was it. That was all we were allowed to say. So moms would start talking, I disagree because, and they would shut the meetings down. And so now we see that on, that's more like the macro scale, but the meso, we see this nationwide by all the opinions being shut out that are differing from the predominant opinion. And what they call this is a propaganda machine. I remember doing a seminar at Hopkins at the Holocaust Museum on how propaganda was used to capture the media and then to skew the entire narrative. And people always say, how did you get one of the most highly educated populations in the world at that time to go along, and be complicit in these horrors and atrocities? Well, that was one of the main things that they did. They captured the media and then they just replayed the same narrative that they wanted spit out. And that's exactly what we're seeing here now. We were not there for, my organization's nonpartisan. We were not there for any of the other issues that were being talked about. We were there about vaccine mandates. And I had several media requests beforehand that wanted us to talk about the other issues. And we said, no, we're here for just this one issue. And this issue is important as well. But I would also like to say is people like me, a lot of people in my generation, I'm a very prior to all of what has this incredible snowball that's been going on for the past few years, very middle of the road voter. I guess you'd call me the independent swing vote. And everything, all this tyranny that we've seen, all this unconstitutional behavior and tyrannical behavior has really pushed me over to the conservative movement as well. And I'm watching that ripple across moms like me across the nation, because I'm connected into these major networks, and all of us are moving more towards the conservative side because we see that those are the only people who are going to stand up for us being truly free and live in a constitutional environment where we're able to have our rights and express them and raise our children as we see fit.
And and I'm sure y'all can too. There's going to be people that are watching this that are rolling their eyes, right? And I'll listen to these crackpots talking about tyranny. I broke down what happened. You look at the news coverage and what has happened over the past several months here. And then you look up, again, an 8th grader can do this, children out there. If you are out there sucking your thumbs and you're calling us names that are daring to question the narrative, open up your dictionaries. It's spelled DICTIONARY. Go to dictionary.com and look up tyranny, cruel, unreasonable, or arbitrary use of power or control. And I would love to have you on the show and explain to me how what LCPS is doing is not meet that definition. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable that we've come to this point in America. And this is why I founded Nova Now TV, because this is necessary. It is necessary. And I want to see at the next meeting, I want to see 50 people out there with their cell phones, with their cameras saying no. The state code guarantees my right to film, guarantees my right to entry, and I'm going in. Private security with guns or not. This has to stop. This has to stop. And the LCPS folks, you need to be put on notice. We are not going to stop. What you're doing is wrong, flagrantly in violation of your duty to serve the public, and you will be held accountable. So let's go back to Dan. Actually, let's start with you, Marcia, or Patty, in terms of the rally, because you were the organizer here. You were the one that really reached out and got Mr. Walsh to come in, and you've been doing a lot of activist work for many years in this. Let's talk about the broad diversity of the issues, because again, this is, as a media guy, this is one of the things that really concerns me, is how this movement is being painted in the way that it is. I want you to talk about that and what you all are doing to counter that.
Sure. So even though I am president of the largest Republican women's club, like Marcia said, this should not be a political thing. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. This is not a conservative or a liberal thing. This is about our children. And I think we have to go back. And that is how I got involved. I'm a mother, yes, of 6 sons. My youngest is a high school junior at a local school. And that he is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. And the irony of the media and the school board and even the way people treat you on social media, it is sad. I've been misquoted. I've been, told that I'm an evil person. I've been called a racist, disgusting. And even yesterday after the rally, I had this woman trolling on my Twitter account, and she posted this awful thing about me and my children. And I showed it to them because they're adults. And my 19-year-old sent her a private message saying, "Why are you doing this to my mother? If you have anything to say, go to her one-on-one." So this is about fear. This is about shutting down an alternative opinion or our political views.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the school board, the majority of all of these pushback of the community started about 2 years ago when we had a school board election. And unfortunately, 7 Democrat school board sit on this. Our board of supervisors is majority Democrat. Our governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and both majority of the houses in Richmond are majority Democrat. And when you have a fully Democrat Virginia, you're going to have people push back. It is our right as American citizens, and our rights come from God. They don't come from the government. And that is why I'm in this fight, because the people who voted for these elected officials, who are the constituents, who are the parents, who are the business leaders of a community, need to be heard. And when you shut us down time and time again, Sam, we have gone for over a year. They dismiss us, they ignore us, they get constituents to dox us or kind of blacklist us on social media. When you get this kind of pushback, you're going to have more people involved. And we will never forget that we have a right to vote. And we have an election this year. And I hope people get out to vote for the Republican candidates and change, removing critical race theory, changing the transgender policies, and now removing these mandates. The mandates of masks and vaccine for our children is just overbearing, and it is dictatorial. And as you know, my parents left communist Cuba in 1961. They escaped. They saw the Castro regime imposing all of these government restrictions on its citizens, and they had no rights. And they came to this country, and America is an amazing country with so much unlimited freedoms and opportunities. And I blame government overreach because I do not co-parent with the government.
Well said. Dan, you have been extremely vocal. Your writings are fitting the mainstream narrative that is saying that so many people were there and the focus was all on the Policy 8040 and the transgender issue. You have been very vocal on that. Why don't you tell us a little bit? And again, in further shows, we can go and delve into this deeper, but tell us a little bit about what brought you out to the rally and beyond the concerns that I'm illustrating here in terms of the lack of transparency and the control crackdown and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about your writings and where you're coming from with all of this.
Well, in fact, my focus has been very broad. I have not been afraid to speak on that issue, as you know, Sam. But
I say that because I saw a few editorials that you put out that were specific on that. But on your website, you do get into a lot more, of course.
Yeah. I think my overarching, obviously, in many ways, the particular issue is secondary in every different case. We have a number of different issues that we're concerned about, but ultimately, it comes down to where the authority lies, and the comments from Terry McAuliffe in the recent debate really highlight that point, where he felt that parents should not be having a say in what their children are taught. I was just this morning for another purpose, for another writing project that I'm working on. I had occasion to be reading the book by Hannah Arendt called The Origins of Totalitarianism. And what she did in that book is she looked at both Stalinist Russia and Nazi Germany and how the preconditions that led to the establishment of these authoritarian governments. And as Patty well knows from her experience in Cuba, these things get repeated in history. And so when we're pushing back on these various issues, among them are the ignoring of laws, whatever the people in positions of authority start to do whatever they want with impunity and to limit discourse and all these various things that we know about. And so I think it's very important to talk about the issues, but it's also important really to focus on what is the processes. I'd be very happy if this school board would simply not be racist. One of my objections is that they're adopting policies that are simply racist, and I don't appreciate that for them pushing that into the schools and onto not only my children, but all children, because I don't think society is bettered by the advancement of racism. And 7 of the 8 current board members, in my estimation, are embracing such things. It'd be nice if they weren't Marxist and pushing Marxist ideologies and ideas on our kids. It'd be nice if they weren't pushing immorality and books that contain very lewd and inappropriate materials into the school libraries and not telling parents about it, or blaming parents for objecting to it. I just don't think that's right. It'd be nice if they weren't in opposition to the science. Now, we can talk about the details of the science regarding masks and cloth masks and all these things. They're considering vaccine mandates. I am frankly for on the side of people making their decisions, and in particular for parents having authority over what happens in terms of their children. But Sam, you asked, and I don't want to run long, but about the policy 80/40. I did object to that policy. Principally, my objection was related to the topic of freedom. Number one, what happened with Tanner Cross and the limitation, the expectation that teachers and staff should be compelled to speak a certain way against their conscience and against what they know to be true. And I think truth is a very important aspect of this conversation. It's not right. Teachers should be teaching in a way that sets an example for students, and caring about what's true is one of the biggest things that I think we ought to be instilling in the next generation. And when they take this away, it just sort of chips away at everything and makes a situation in which we're in big trouble if people start caring about what's true and start compromising when it comes to speaking what they know to be true. And everybody should be able to, you can object and have conversations about things, but when you start shutting down conversations, I think that's when you run into real trouble.
Very well said. Marcia, you obviously, that buzzword that we've been throwing around here, tyranny, this is something that is on your radar, and you spoke very eloquently and very passionately about your concerns regarding the vaccine, not just the vaccine, but the vaccine mandates. And I'm going to play a little clip from you, and to me, it's rather disturbing what we're seeing. The imagery here was astonishing to me, how we had citizens lined up at the door, being treated like criminals going into a detention center, having to get literally patted down, show their ID, which I thought voter ID laws were racist, by the way. If anybody would like to explain why to get into a public meeting and speak to your school board, you have to show your ID, I would love to hear that and how that's not racist. Had an interesting talk with Joe Mobley, a young black man from D.C. about that, by the way. We'll get into that down the road. And then they had to go through metal detection. And then they lined up in groups of 10, brought in one at a time to stand before the illustrious leaders, and then ushered out, deprived of their rights to view the meeting, to view the comments, and to record the comments. I'm going to play a little clip of what I was experiencing and how I was treated. I have more that I'll show at another time, but this is just an example of what we're looking at here. And we got about 10 minutes left. We're going to go ahead and have you elaborate on this. Real quick clip. Here we go.
Yeah, we were down there. How you doing back there? Good to see you.
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
So you got your fake news reporter with you?
You're quite
good to see you.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you do. Come on, you guys. Real outlet.
You are you serious? I'm opening up a live, raw, unedited stream, sir, and you're calling me fake news.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And being so arrogant and snide about it. Hi
That
out
gentleman is Wade Byard. He is the Loudoun County Public School Communications Director. He also commented on a report I made about a principal of Potomac View High School.
Wow.
When I spoke to the teacher that heard this principal fire people and said that he wanted to dismantle and disrupt our public school system. Do you know that Wade Byard called me a liar in this article? It was from the Epoch Times. He called me a liar and said that anyone that's anonymous is a coward. So this is what they go to now, Sam. They're calling media like you fake news. They're calling parents like me who have spoken to these anonymous teachers. They're calling us liars. All they can do is name call.
Marcia, back to you. Your thoughts on the rise of tyranny and how this applies to the vaccine mandates, and then we'll wrap this up and get into these topics deeper at another time. Go ahead.
I have about 3 thoughts on this that come to mind. What they want here is truly segregation. They want vaxxed and unvaxxed completely separate. And I thought that was like not a thing in American culture anymore. We shouldn't be fans of segregation. I said in my speech, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. No medical crisis, new or old, no virus, new or old, deems every person incompetent of making their own individual health choices with their very competent providers, right? The patients first and then the provider. And what we're seeing here is government not only playing authoritarian, but now playing doctor as well. They know nothing about our bio-individual makeup, what makes us us, and what parameters we have around what medical products we can take. So this new ushering in of segregation is as disturbing as everything else. 2, we keep saying that we have the Republicans here who are holding true to their standard Republican values, but what we have here is not your traditional Democrats. We have this group of radical, I would say that they're insurrectionists. They're becoming insurrectionists of this party. They're infiltrating this party, and they're coming with these very radical, Marxist, un-American belief systems.
Progressive.
They're saying this is what this party is, but traditionally, that's not what the Democratic Party was. And unfortunately, we have in America, in the socioeconomic stratosphere, people who aren't, doing very well, or a lot of us, especially during COVID, are just trying to get by. So if you conform to a certain party and you believe that they hold your ideology, you're just kind of going with it, especially during a time when there's been a lot of scarcity and a lot of fear. So I think you have a lot of people who are probably backing this stuff that aren't really aware what these concepts mean. They just go, I'm a Democrat, so I'm supporting these Democrat policies. And when that really unfolds, I think they're going to be in for a really sad surprise, because these aren't the greatest generation Democrats who just want to help people, right? We used to call them the bleeding heart
these are
liberals.
not what we refer to as
them.
classical. We throw the term around, liberal, right? The right wing likes to bash the crazy liberals. These are not classical liberals by any stretch of the imagination. They're actually antithetical to the liberal stance. Absolutely.
They're Marxist. And then my last point would be, what I'm seeing here at this Loudoun County School Board meeting is also what we are seeing in the state government structure as well. Some old school Democrats actually called the newer Democrats out and said, I was in the committee meeting when it happened. What are you guys doing? Why are you putting all these very radical things on the code? It's unnecessary. These are beliefs. These shouldn't be laws. And they just steamrolled that Dem as well. But what I'm really seeing here from my walk is we're seeing like this massive live action role play of the Stanford prison experiment. Mr. Wade Byard comes out. He's got the mask on. He's got the authority. you're the underling, and it's this presumption of power, and then using that power to punish. And it's very unfortunate. And we've studied these. That was, that experiment was done. It was deemed highly unethical, but we are watching this play out micro, macro, meso on all levels as these people come in, they infiltrate, and because I refuse to call them standard Democrats. They're not. This is a movement within the Democratic Party to capture the Democratic Party and then usher in these very radical Marxist communist views. And from my perspective, I talked a lot about the vaccines and the damage that they do and how corrupt the pharmaceutical industry is. I think so many people are just kind of numb from those cycles as well, that they're just kind of falling in behind it and they don't really know what they're falling into.
Absolutely. And we saw that day. I mean, good people that were just, as I was, absolutely flummoxed by all of this, and just get in line and do what they say, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to get in there, just take their crumbs. This needs to stop. This needs to stop. I cannot be any more clear about this. Folks, we got 2 minutes. Patty,
there are 5 lawsuits against this school board. I just need you to understand.
There's going to be a lot
5.
more, I can tell you that.
With 5 different organizations, from parents, from Family Foundation, from teachers. I mean, that is the only way we can change this. We can't wait until 2023 when they will be revoted out. But we're also causing a recall. 6 of these school board members, there's a big recall.
Yes. But it needs to extend not just from the school board members, but to somebody like this gentleman who's in public information. Give me a break. Dan, I got 30 seconds for you. Go. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, all of us up here we're just regular citizens. We're good. My parents, my daughters have done very well in Loudoun County Public Schools. My daughter, who just graduated last year, was valedictorian at Woodgrove High School. But we have limited time to do these things. I mean, we're doing what we can. I prefer not even to be doing this at all. So people who are watching this, who live in the area, I just want to also invite, there were many more people than was represented who were at the meeting this week. But just also to really encourage everybody, this is something that concerns us all.
Dan, I can come back to you if need be, but we're going to lose Marcia in less than a minute. Let me get her closing thoughts before we go head out. Marcia, closing thoughts.
My closing thoughts are usually pretty similar in all of this. It would be conservative-minded people they tend to do the right thing, and they expect others to do the right thing as well. And if you're somebody who just does the right thing and expects others to do the right thing as well, now is the time that you're being called to stand up and remind other people and do what you feel called to do.
Amen.
To help others become aware of what really is the truth here and not the propaganda. Some of us are called to be speakers. Some of us are, like Patty, are called to be brilliant organizers. Others are called to write, like the doctor is doing. We're all called to do something, and it's time to show that courage and that boldness.
Excellent.
And use it, because courage is contagious. And whatever it is that you feel called to do, you have to do it now. Once you know of something that is happening, that is an atrocity, that is egregious, that's totalitarian, that's anti-American in its nature, you have to do something. Whatever you're feeling called to do must be done. You have a duty to act as an American, as a parent, as a neighbor in this culture. You have to do something to make sure that American values are upheld and that your children are in the safest environment. God, like Patty said, God gives us our rights, not government. God also gives us our children and the gift to raise them as we see fit. These things that are being ushered in, these mandates, these ideologies, that is not the responsibility of a school board to declare. And I think we see on a small level, throughout all the levels, this happening nationwide. And we do have to stand up in whatever way we feel called and say, no, that's enough. That is not what is going to fly here, and really get these people out of these positions and be mindful that they exist, and they exist with an intent to do harm to our children, to our families, and to our society on an ideological level and even on a physical level. I said at the rally, most people were there trying to safeguard their children's hearts and minds. With these mandates, I'm just reminding you all that you need to safeguard their bodies as well. That's
excellent. Nicely said. Marcia, thanks so much for coming on. Dan, we'll go ahead and close it out with you. You have quite an impressive podcast going on yourself. Why don't you let people know how to get hold of you?
Oh yeah, well, for anybody who's interested in a very narrow topic, but one that's kind of interesting and is getting attention around the world, I have I have a video channel called Variant Quran, and I've just discussed my research, and this is the book that I published about 2 years ago now, which has gotten a fair amount of attention around the world. And yeah, if you have interest, I'd appreciate coming over and seeing that. I enjoy talking about that among many other things as well. So
great. Maybe we can do a show on that. That would be fabulous. Sir, thank you so much for what you're doing. I've been enjoying reading your editorials and I'm looking forward to learning more about your work. Thanks for coming on and supporting NovaNow.tv.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend. And there you have it, another episode of NovaNow.tv. Folks, get out there, get activated, get your phones. And you know what? It's always been this way all through history. You're going to get power drunk officials at federal, state, international, and at a local level. And it happens. And the only way that we can actually change that is to, number one, run for office ourselves. And number two, activate and utilize the tools that we have at our disposal to hold those that are stepping out of line and are going beyond their scope of authority to account. So, there it is, folks. Step up. If you've been stepping up, God bless you, and thank you for doing so. And if you haven't, you need to do so. We are in a state of emergency. My name is Sam Ettaro, and I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks to all of our guests for coming on to NovaNow.tv. We will see you next time around. God bless. And remember, please subscribe at NovaNow.tv because we do not accept sponsors. We do not. You notice there's no advertisements on the show other than for my production company. So we just simply ask that you please get involved, subscribe, and if you got $9 a month and you can help keep this thing going, we would appreciate it. The least that you can do, subscribe to our social media and share our videos, and we thank you for all of those considerations. God bless you. NovaNow.tv, I'm Ettaro, and I am out.